In videos and in the comment sections, anti-feminists often take up the most extreme or the weakest feminist position they can find, or they just straight up misrepresent what the feminist position is. Instead, why not take up the strongest, most robust feminist argument you can find and really challenge yourself?
The fruit on the feminist tree doesn't grow that high. Now, seeing as you're in it, I assume this video has the kind of challenge you're expecting me to answer. So let's see what you've got.
I am deeply concerned with male addiction rates, suicide rates, and abuse rates, because I have worked with these issues in the quote-unquote real world. Would you be willing as anti-feminists to put aside your differences with feminists for the greater good of addressing these issues, especially as the kind of solutions needed are not necessarily gendered? And if so, I would actually like you to let me know, because I'm not fucking around or presenting any gotchas here. I actually really think that we could get something done if we work together. So, yeah.
And in what way would the feminist perspective be useful in addressing male-centric problems? You're suggesting that we come together to, what, spitball solutions to these social issues? Or maybe you're referring to some sort of negotiation in which I concede something in order for you to stop obstructing the construction of male abuse shelters.
What is third wave feminism? Because I've often heard you folks insist that you have no objection to feminism in general. It's specifically third wave feminism that you have a quarrel with. So what is third wave feminism specifically? And what specifically about third wave feminism do you have such a problem with?
Third wave feminism is merely feminism in its modern incarnation, and the fundamental difference between third and second wave feminism is that during second wave feminism there were legitimate social inequalities that needed to be addressed. So is not the case nowadays.
Why is it that this feminist represents all feminists, but this men's rights activist doesn't represent all men's rights activists?
Whoa, wait, sexism all of a sudden? Ladies and men are different? So we're supposed to punch men and not hit ladies and open doors for men, but not ladies? Fuck you, get out of my face, you tiny piece of shit.
Neither of those people represent anyone but themselves, and I would never claim otherwise. What makes Triggerlypuff so amusing is that she is the embodiment of all of the worst characteristics of feminism rolled into one obnoxious ball. That said, I would say that more feminists fit the Triggerlypuff archetype than MRAs fit that guy.
Why am I continually asked to answer for the views of feminists if I agree with feminism's overall aims, but don't agree much with those particular feminists? Does that mean that I can ask you to answer for anybody who labels themselves similarly to you, even if you don't agree much?
And do you think this conflation between the individual and their respective groups is something that occurs exclusively or even primarily to SJWs from anti-SJWs? Because it wasn't too many questions ago, I was asked to work on my felonious behavior because of what the Ralph retort did. I would not intentionally hold you to account for any words or behaviors that you did not commit, but this is the kind of confusion that arises when you adopt a label, especially one as vague and fractious as feminism.
SJWs are bad because they spend too much time whining and don't talk about real problems. Then why aren't you talking about those problems instead of just whining about the other people over and over and over for literally years? I mean, in the scale of priorities, that's like even lower, right? You know, you've got the real problems, you've got the things that feminists worry about, and then you've got you going, oh, how dare they? Just, how dare they have different priorities from me? Why can't they do what I do? Whine about whining forever for a living. That's healthy.
I consider responding to feminists a form of addressing a social problem because I find that feminists are actively working against social progress. It is not as if you are addressing less important but still valid issues. You're addressing made-up issues, and in the course of correcting these non-issues, you are actually hurting equality.
Why don't you seem as concerned with actual feminist theory in academia as you are with wrecking people for views?
Because academic feminism is not the form of feminism that is most widely spread and has the biggest impact. That said, I still am concerned with academic feminism. I just don't give it any more credence than mainstream feminism because I don't think either hold much weight.
Since so many of you profess to be admirers of second-wave feminism as opposed to third-wave feminism, I thought it would be interesting to ask which second-wave feminists in particular do you appreciate? Which books written by second-wave feminists have you read and found interesting? Which second-wave feminist activists have you specifically admired as you formed the opinion that you like second-wave feminism but you have no use for third-wave feminism? I'm just curious.
I admire none of them specifically, and I've read none of their books. I prefer second-wave feminism to third-wave feminism because I can look at the issues each respective movement was addressing and see that there were legitimate issues to be faced during the second wave.
You do understand that reading the title of a book or an article or watching the first 15 seconds of a video is not going to give you a deep, nuanced understanding of what that book or article or video is about, right? That being said, how can you expect to understand or critique feminist sources if you don't even attempt to understand what they're trying to say?
Why must I read paper after paper of feminist literature before you think I'm qualified enough to critique your position? And even if I did waste all of that time reading, I still don't think I would be any closer to convincing you of my position, so this is just wasted effort. How many papers on men's rights have you read through before you determined that men's rights was not a cause worth taking up?
Trying and failing to debunk a study into sexual assault the number one priority for a rational thinker now? Does it maybe say something about your priorities? Nah, it's fine, it's the feminazis, we have to stop them. They're taking away our video games.
That is not my priority. My priority is defending our freedom of speech from the encroachment of political correctness. That said, why do you take umbrage with people trying to debunk studies that seem flawed?
Anita, I'm sorry, but I can't actually destroy video games. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make sense that you'd ever be able to destroy video games, but you can push them in a direction I don't like, and that's worth responding to. This concludes Part 2. Part 3 will be released shortly. At the conclusion of this series, I will move on to other topics. If you want to get in contact with me, see the description. That's all for now. See you soon.